Abs of October Red, I'm joined by the knowledgeable Mr. Andy Clarke, the Mr. Voiceover, I'm going to say. You've got books, you're talking, you're doing all sorts. Talk to us.
Yeah, no, it's been a busy time. It's been a busy time. So the book comes out at the end of May. Really excited about that. Been doing some press for that. I went in and recorded the audio book at the end of March, which I really enjoyed, actually. I think it's probably a lot easier if you're reading your own stuff. But at the same time, the guys who are working on it, they make you understand that there's a different aspect to it. And I knew it would be different to what I normally do, and it is. But it was quite a mellow kind of 3 days, just sitting there reading back through it all. I still thought it was interesting when I'd finished, so that's good, isn't it? Imagine if you just sit there and get to the end, or get halfway through and think, I don't know about this, this is not, it's just like, I'm checking out. That would have been bad. But no, it's been, the whole thing's been great. It's been really fun.
Tell us, for those of us that like to listen to audio books, the book title and where we can listen.
So it's not available until the end of May. It's going to be on Audible, I think.
Yep.
The book's called The Knockout, Sport's Most Decisive Moment, and it's just all aspects of the knockout, basically. All angles, any angle you can think of, it's covered. And it was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. A lot of work, but a lot of fun.
I'll be rude not to speak about this card, Game On. Sky Sports putting on their second stadium fight, I do beg your pardon. But this time it is CBS versus Riakporhe for that belt. Talk to us about that.
Well, we've been waiting for it for a while, haven't we? And I do feel like now is perfect timing for it, because Rich has not been as active as he would have wanted to have been, but he's been in the gym every time he's not been fighting, and you can see the improvements there. Chris has done what he's done and now has the look of a real solid, credible world champion about him. And going to a stadium is always great. Well, we've been spoiled the last 10 years. I'm in double figures now for stadium fights, and I can't quite believe it sometimes. And going somewhere new is always really interesting. I used to go to Selhurst Park a lot when I covered football 20 plus years ago when I was just starting. That was my kind of turf for about a season or two. So I know that place really well. It's an old school ground. So in terms of the changing rooms and the tunnel and all that stuff, it's tight and really kind of intimate. Yeah, an old fashioned kind of football ground. So I can't wait to see that one transformed on the night. And it is a really good fight. They've got the history. Neither one's reading too much into the fact that Riakporhe beat Billam-Smith back in the day, but it's something that happened in real life. So if I'm Riakporhe, I am reading a reasonable amount into that. Not thinking it will be the same kind of fight, but mentally you know that's something that occurred. It's going to be a good fight, I think. I genuinely do think it's going to be a good fight. I think Riakporhe is ready for the hardest fight of his career, and he needs to be. He's got that knockout power, but I think this could be one of those long, hard, brutal, dirty old fights. When I say dirty, I mean just snot and blood and sweat and all of that. And those are the ones we love, aren't they?
Could I ask, Andy, was you commentating, correct me if I'm wrong, was you commentating on their first fight?
Yeah.
So, okay, talk us through that, because obviously it was a split decision win for Riakporhe. Casting your mind back to that, I know it's like, it was ages ago, but that's the history, that's part of the core of this fight now. Talk to us about that fight.
It was a really, really good fight. It was a really good match made at a time when fighters don't necessarily take those kinds of fights. I felt like Riakporhe did do enough. I felt like the knockdown was legitimate. I felt the ropes did keep Chris up. He disputes that, absolutely fine, as is his right. And I felt after that, it looked to me like Riakporhe might be about to close the show. It looked like it was a possibility, but Billam-Smith rallied and finished well. So it was genuinely a really close fight. If he got it, Chris, I wouldn't have been outraged by any degree. But my feeling on the night was that Riakporhe had just done enough. But it was definitely one that you fancied watching again. And yeah, the amount of time it's taken to make the fight is perfect, because we've got a world title on the line.
When you look at their styles and how they've both come on, and I think it's a privilege to be in your position because you was there for the first fight and now you're here for the world title fight, how many years on? But we can say that they've both improved. Of course we can. But when you look at their styles will make that fight. How they got on the first time. When you look at both of them, how they've been in different fights, how do you see this one really going? Because I'm scratching my head a little bit about it and I can't seem to see them this time, because they've they've developed so much, they both have.
Yeah, they have. I think Billam-Smith is a very good, solid, all-round fighter. And he is also, as we know, someone who has proved his grit. He's proved his minerals. When it gets really hard in there, that's when he can really get to work. It doesn't mean that that's how he always wants it. When someone's capable of having a really hard fight, sometimes we feel like, oh, that's what they want. But it's not. It's not really, because, you know, you can't have too many of them. But I don't feel there are any obvious real weaknesses with Billam-Smith. People look at him and feel like he's too easy to hit, but at the same time, when you box at that level, you are going to get hit. And he does take a shot well. I don't think he necessarily gives them away. He maybe did a bit too much against Masternak, but you're not always at your absolute pinnacle every time you get in there. And the first defence is hard, because no matter how much you tell yourself, this is not going to be after the Lord Mayor's show, I'm going to be right up where I need to be, you might just be missing that 0.1 or 0.2, which right at that razor's edge can make a bit of a difference. With Riakporhe, I feel like he is, again, like Chris, he's improved a lot since the first fight. In those days, when he was taking that series of fights like Tommy McCarthy, Sam Hyde, those kinds of fights, you could see the kind of panic wasn't very far below the surface. When someone stepped to him, he would kind of pull, all of that, he'd pull faces, and that's because the level of panic, he hadn't really fought the fear away. It was still kind of quite near the surface. Now it's quite a long way below the surface, and that's the big difference with him, basically. And he does have that power, but I feel like now he's capable of hurting you with either hand. I think the power is there, to the head, to the body, right hand, left hand. So that makes him a completely different proposition. I think it's going to be quite tight early on, but I think in the second half, and I do think we'll get to the second half, I think that's when it'll really catch fire.
It's definitely an exciting fight, a fight that I'm looking forward to. But let's just move down the card slightly quickly. Ben Whittaker is fighting Ezra, and forgive me, I can't pronounce his surname properly, I haven't got my notes out. That fight, that almost looked like it was orchestrated from when Ben was fighting Leon Willings. You know, he knew where the press conference was, he got through the security, and voila, we have this fight. I mean, talk to us about that. Not that I'm a skeptic, but...
No, I mean, it is an interesting scenario, and you could tell from listening to Whittaker on the top table there, and he said the same to me and Johnny when he came over for the Sky stream. It irritates him that you can just gate crash his press conference, make a load of noise and get a fight with him, because, you know, it's years in the making what is happening to Whittaker now. People look at it and feel like everyone's an overnight success 25 years in the making, aren't they? As soon as you really command some attention, people, where's this guy come from? And the answer is always, this started years ago. So I think that annoys him, to be honest. But if you're, Arenyenka, it's an opportunistic strike. He's gone out there and tried to make something happen for himself, and he's managed it. And I give him credit for that. He's been boxing in the UK. He's been based in the UK at a couple of gyms. Graham Everett's in Norwich, Anthony Farnell's up in Manchester. He's boxed all over the place. He's got no backing, he knows that. So he has to make something happen for himself. It's very difficult to tell how good he is from looking at his record. And Whittaker, as we know, is a special fighter, or at least that's what we think he's going to be. So it's an uphill task for him. But he did say, Whittaker, didn't he, that this is the last time I will sanction anything like this. You can't just shout. Yeah. But he's got to take care of business, doesn't he?
Do you think, obviously, we talk about stars in the making. Obviously, Ben Whittaker, he is creating a wave. He's good. He's a brand within himself. He sells himself no matter where he goes. He's going to sell. Let's face it. Do you find like the Osas fans were quite fickle, and there's almost just as much as people that want to see him win, maybe the same amount of people want to see him lose, and like the British public haven't really got behind him, and he's getting the support from places like the US? Your experience in the sport, you've seen this before with certain other fighters. How does that compare, and how can that hinder or progress Ben Whittaker?
I think it does help him. I've never really understood this kind of love them or hate them thing, because I don't think it needs to be that binary. When I was like younger, Ben Eubank was a big thing, and it was kind of, are you either Ben or are you Eubank? Now I loved Eubank. I was fascinated by him. Every single thing that he did, he was just a fascinating bloke. And I wanted him to win. But I like Nigel Benn too, because he was a really good fighter to watch. And I enjoyed the kind of animosity between them. So, You know, it's kind of the same with Naz for me. A lot of the stuff he did, it wasn't really for me, but I loved watching him because he was amazing to watch. And I didn't tune in hoping he would lose. I tuned in just wanting to see a really good fight and wanting him to win because he's a British fighter. So, but a lot of people do think about it in those kind of very, you know, one or the other binary terms. But I think the more that people see him, they will understand that you can't get to where he's got to if you're all style and no substance. It is very possible to be both. And if you get to a high level, which hopefully he'll get to, you can't do that without being both. It's just not, it's not possible. You can't blag your way in any sport. It's a meritocracy. You know, it's not subjective as to how good somebody is. You get in there and you do your thing and the results are the results. So it might take a little bit of time before everyone kind of realises that. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of, you see him up there with Ezra, and he's quite cutting. He's quite cutting quite a lot of the things that he said. He wasn't messing around, was he? He wasn't messing around. But at the same time, he's always at pains to make people understand that he's been doing this a really long time and that he's dedicated and that he does give back. I saw him at the Senior Elite Finals a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday. He didn't need to be there. He wasn't being paid to be there. He just came because he was asked to come and he gave up his Saturday, which, you know, not everybody would do that. So you do have this kind of dichotomy to an extent, but yeah, I think it's, for me, it's always been quite easy to separate what is a fight week kind of persona. It's still real, but they're different in fight week, aren't they? You know that, like it's they're different in fight week to outside of fight week.
I've got to ask, because you're the man that wears many hats, and I know that you're working out there with Riyadh season. May the 18th, we're all sitting here biting our nails. Is it going to happen? Isn't it going to happen? There was a few people that were throwing crazy rumours out online, and it's like, this fight is so important for all boxing fans, not just the British fans, but it's such an important bout. Your thoughts on that? May the 18th?
Yeah, I'm very confident that May the 18th will happen, unless something incredibly unfortunate like what happened last time happens again, because it was what it said on the tin. It was a cut-in sparring. That's what happened.
That's it.
And that can always happen again. It's possible, but it would be unbelievable bad luck were that to happen. But there's no conspiracy here. They want to fight each other. Why would they not want to fight each other? It's apart from the fact that they both want to go down in history as undisputed, there's a phenomenal amount of money on the table. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And yeah, I can't wait to see it. My feeling has always been that when Usyk moved up to heavyweight, that the other heavyweight in the division who could match him for skill, although not exactly the same type of skill, was Fury. And that Fury would be skillful enough to make the size count, because he is a lot bigger. He'll be, if he sticks with the weights he's been in the last few fights, he'll be 50 pounds heavier probably. And that is a lot. And if you can use it, that is a lot. You know, it really is. But having said that, Usyk's somebody who, you know, he's always found a way, and he's always found a way in with something to spare. So I'm all over it. I feel like it could well be close and contentious, and it looks like they're really going to stick to that rematch clause as well.
And that was going to be my next question, because it seems like we've got Anthony Joshua sort of like loitering in the background. There's some suggestion now that Deontay Wilder in August may be fighting Jared Anderson, so it sort of like puts him out possibly for September for Anthony Joshua in Wembley, and it's like almost the boxing heavyweight division rides on May the 18th.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways it does, because we haven't had an undisputed fight for 25 years. I was doing, yeah, that's it. I was doing this thing on it for Sky the other week, and you know, it all started back in the early 60s when Cassius Clay, as he was then, beat Sonny Liston, and then, you know, at that point it used to be basically one belt, then it became the WBA and the WBC, and then those two quite quickly splintered, and it's been that way since then. Undisputed has been the holy grail, and then the IBF gets added, and then the WBO. And the whole thing's pretty confusing a lot of the time, because boxing generally is, but we haven't had one for 25 years. Even though the WBO was around when Lennox Lewis was undisputed. It was like the IBO now. It didn't have the traction. So he was regarded as being undisputed. And we've had a lot of fights for undisputed in other divisions in the last few years. We didn't have any for ages, and then we had a load. And there's been loads in female boxing. And the heavyweight division has been dragging its feet, and it's the most important division because it's the one that people care about most. So we need one. We need one. Everybody will know that who is the number one name in boxing, the best boxer on the planet, and it is whoever is the undisputed heavyweight champion. Because you can argue about skill sets and all the rest of it, pound for pound, but the fact is that the heavyweight champion of the world would beat everybody in every other division. It wouldn't be fair, yes, but they would. So they are, exactly. And you need one. We need one, don't we?
Listen, I literally can't wait for it. I get excited every time I think about it because it's so important that to see that boxing's coming together and that we're starting to really get those fights. You're, like I said, you work for everybody. You're independent. You're here with Sky. You'll go over and you'll do a bit on the Queensbury shows. When are we going to start to see like boxer fighters? This is what we want to know. Like Ben Whittaker, because I saw Ben Whittaker was in New York the other day with Ben Shalom. Eddie Hearn was in New York, and I thought, oh, is this it? Are we going to start to get that collaborative work? And it's like, is that going to start to happen?
Yeah, I feel like it will, because you look at America and they're doing that show on August the 3rd, and there's, loads. And I feel like that it will happen. It will happen, which would be great, because, I mean, firstly, I knew it was going to happen, but it's great that they're doing a show in America. They're happy to fund a show in America. They're happy to fund a show in the UK, because the fear is, for us, was always going to be, well, we're never going to see Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua in the UK ever again, and any big name we get will just go over there and we'll never see them here ever again. And now we can see that that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I wonder, with the rematch for Fury Usyk, whether that could end up here. I mean, why not? Because Fury's a British fighter. Usyk doesn't care where the fight is. So, yeah, I do think that more promoters will be brought in. You know, if you've got a fighter who literally fits the bill, then it's not really going to matter who your promoter is.
We love it. Listen, Andy, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Somebody that you literally can just bounce those ideas off what's going on in the sport. Me, the rookie, and you being so experienced. But I feel like it because it's like I'm picking your brains every time we speak. But thank you so much for your time. And no doubt we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.